Good Sunday morning, YouTube. It's me, Video Gamer, and this is the first time I've made a video since school started back up again, since my senior year started. And it feels awesome! Yeah, it's been a while since I talked to you guys, and before we begin my newest drawing, it's raining. Before we begin my newest drawing, I wanted to tell you guys a bit of info that might make some of you facepalm. Remember the How to Draw VGC sketchbook? Do you also remember the shot that I got that looked really cool in the How to Draw Basics Creative series? That sketchbook was actually the How to Draw VGC sketchbook, and I left it outside for a couple days and it rained. Yeah. The drawings are still okay. Since I used colored pencil, they did pretty well at holding up. A few that I used marker on, I think there was only one. This one that I used marker on sort of bled everywhere, but it's still okay. I think the waxiness of the colored pencils prevented them from getting ruined, but I just dried it out for a bit, and most of them were okay. All the printed drawings sort of disintegrated, but that's okay because they're on my computer as well. So, for the most part, this book survived, but I'm not going to be drawing it anymore. There's only 2 pages left. 3, I can't count, so we're not missing much. I've got a whole nother sketchbook ready, and I'm eager to begin my next drawing of Sly Cooper. This was requested a while back, but I haven't ever gotten to get around to it until right now. I'm gonna start right now. I'm supposed to say a phrase. Let the drawing... Alright, so let's get started on this drawing of Sly Cooper. I am going to start off first with a sketch of my overall drawing just to figure out where I want to place the characters. I'm going to start off with simple shapes, sketching where I want my characters to be. This is Sly's head right here. We're using a bit of the rule of thirds to place his head in a spot of interest on the paper. Where'd that camera come from? Hi. I guess I could use this time to sort of explain what the rule of thirds is. If you haven't heard of it before, the rule of thirds basically divides your piece of paper up into 3 sections, horizontally and vertically, so you have a nice little grid going across it. And whenever you put a character or object within one of those intersections that it forms, it sort of draws more attention to it and it makes your drawing more interesting. And we're just going to continue on sketching all of Sly's body in the way that we want to. Don't feel like you have to do the exact same pose that I do. I want you guys to be creative and try out new things, just like I'm doing right now. We're actually going to have his face turned this way, as if he's looking in this general direction. That's sort of going to give us a line of action going across here, sort of leads your eyes all the way across the drawing to this area over here. We're starting to draw what I think has become one of his signature items. It's a cane that his father had. I'm not going to give too much away because I don't want to spoil anything if you decide to play this awesome game. But it's sort of like a jagged moon shape. I'm going to start up at the top here, and it sort of comes back down on itself here. And then going back behind him, we'll put the rest of the cane. That sort of once again points back to his face. Now, you might be wondering why I keep turning this upside down and back and forth. Well, it's because Sly is actually flipping in mid-air, and I'm drawing him as he's doing so, which is gonna look awesome, hopefully. I'm going to continue on by putting in the ground back here, however I decide to do this. He is flipping a good deal. And this is actually the ground here. We're gonna add in some details and a few other characters to also help the action a little bit. Sly is the main focus, but I'm also going to be drawing in Carmelita, Bentley and Murray, and that's it for now. I don't know any other characters really, so. Before we begin detailing Sly's character, I think it's important to let you know that you should be keeping your pencil sharp while you're doing this. This pencil sharpener doesn't work. When starting in with stuff like this, you want to keep your pencil sharp That way your lines remain defined, you don't get confused by all the clutter and stuff, so you'll have to sharpen a little bit more often, but it will yield better results in the end. You also don't want to make any lines too dark, because then they will be hard to erase when it comes time for that part. You'll see what I mean. We are going to start off with Sly's face. That's where I like to start best, is the face. We got a reference image here to help out a bit, and we're gonna get started. I wanted him looking upwards like this a little bit, so I placed his eyes here. We're going to sort of place where his nose is at, just sort of comes up in a peak here, and at the end of it is a black dot. We're going to bring his triangle down here, so we're going to sharpen it a bit more, and he's got a little bit of a cheek here, but not too much. Sly seems to be a rather skinny guy. And then on the edge here we have, I guess you could call it fur or hair or something. And it comes up just like that. You're actually going to be seeing the underside of his face a little bit. Sly has a defined chin. It's sort of like a square here. There we go. And we're going to give him a big smile. He's just so confident of himself. Within the game, Bentley usually tries to tell him of how dangerous a situation may be, and Sly just kind of shrugs it off usually. And if you're interested in actually seeing a little bit of the game, Ben, my friend, and I have actually put together a little bit of a Let's Play of Sly Cooper that will be on a channel that we started. It's a really awesome game, and I would encourage you to check it out. And if not through us, definitely give the game a look yourself. We're going to get into the part that sort of makes a raccoon look like a thief anyway. It's the masked black area. It's rounded off up here, and it's got a triangle cut into it just above the nose, a little bit before it, right about here. And then within inside of that, we have the white part of his eyes inside. I want him to be looking this direction, like I said, so we're gonna put his eyes up here. We're gonna add some more into them later. Let's get his head in first. The reason we have this line so sharp here is because his hat's gonna come around. It's kind of a Frenchish looking hat. It's not like one of those, oh, I don't know what they're called. Who can tell me what the famous French hat is? Probably nobody, because I'm being very vague and specific. Oh well. You can try. Just list off whatever French hat names you know of. We've got it sort of coming back around here. And then here, out of the side, we've got Sly's ear coming up. It's going to be pretty big. Then as Sly's hat comes around, we've got the bill of it coming out just a little bit over his face. His ear actually comes around the side of his face on this side. Add just a little bit of detail to his ear. And I think we've got the face pretty much nailed. We're going to move on and work on the rest of Sly's body now. We kind of do want his collar to come up a bit higher though, based upon the angle he's facing. And we want it to be on the edge of things here. And now we're going to work a little bit more on the clothing details here to make sure we're getting things right. His sleeves will sort of come up a little bit more. Yeah, like he sort of got shoulder pads or something. I think it's just the way his clothing was designed. And we're gonna have it bunched up a little bit close to the point where the arms start here. Got his arm coming down here, but as it gets closer to the cuff of his shirt, it's going to widen out a bit more. And then it's going to angle back as the clothing bunches up on the cuff. Now by this point, some of you might be wondering why one hand of Sly's looks smaller than the other, or why the feet are so large in comparison to the rest of the body. Well, the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to be utilizing perspective within this drawing to sort of give it more interest. Basically what that means is as his hand goes back into the distance, it gets smaller than a hand that would per se be closer to the viewer, as you can see demonstrated by me. We're going to have some more cloth wrinkles coming along, and cloth wrinkles help out a lot to just sort of add that texture to clothing. Now here's another arm that's utilizing the perspective that I talked about earlier. You're going to see some of the cuff, but because of how it is angled towards you, you're not going to see all of it or as much of it. We've got a little bit of the undershirt, I suppose, coming up, and then his glove coming out of that. So whenever you're drawing hands on any humanistic character, you can just use your own hands as a model for it. So you've sort of got it coming down like this. Let's angle it back a little bit like that. Yeah, there we go. We have two main shadows here though. Let's get Sly's first finger in here. And we're going to have the middle finger coming down. It's a little bit smaller, but it's still on the same level a little bit. And then the pinky is the one that's the weirdest shaped. And I think I've allotted too much room for it. Figure out where that thumb was coming out here. So it's sort of more like a curved line coming down through here then. We're going to do the same for the other hand here. We're going to have his cuff coming out here. And based upon how it's angled, you're going to see the bottom portion of it there. Erase a little bit there. The knuckle coming up there. And the rest of the hands follow suit. The cane looks pretty good for now, but we do have a sort of three-dimensional element to this coming around here. We're going to finish up the clothing here. Sly does have a belt down here, but you can't really see it. I'm gonna throw it in on the edge here a little bit. We'll have the clothing bunching up there. And then from there, a little bit of his tunic, as I'm going to call it. I don't know what else to call it. Poncho. I don't know. A little bit of that will come out, sort of flare out over his legs a little bit. And it's going to do the same for this leg as well. We've got a great big knee coming up here. Now for their style, I guess they opted to make the knee sort of a, I don't know, a rectangular shape, very jagged. This up here is his leg muscle, I suppose. And then as we come down here, in order to go into the boot area, seems like we have a whole bunch of fur coming over it. I don't know, do raccoons have fur? I'm not quite sure. I'd call it fur, but let's bring this leg down here, straight to the fur, and I need to make it a little bit thinner. Moving on to the other leg, we're going to do basically the same thing, except he does not have a strap on his leg like he did on the other one. Bringing up his muscle over everything, and then ending it off with a sharp knee up here. Sly has a relatively large tail. It's about his entire body size, and the actual in-game graphics made it look sort of jagged, and the stripes on his tail are rather big as well. We start off with a black stripe here. In order to make it look round, we're just gonna bring it down. We're using a sort of jagged outline. We've got another stripe up here someplace. Can't see where it starts, but... And we got another one coming around like that. And his tail ends in a black tip. And if you ask me, that looks pretty good for our in medias res Sly Cooper. I used a French word just now. And it actually means in the middle of a plot. This is actually part of the beginning scene when he's trying to dash from Carmelita's police office with the secret file. Back here we're going to put the exit that he's trying to get to, which is also le exit, because his friends Bentley and Murray are waiting in the getaway van right back here. And I'm thinking I'm gonna have Murray leaning out the driver's side here. Oh, wait, it's Europe. Which side do they drive on in Europe? Wow, Murray is actually driving on the right side of the road. They messed up. I proved them wrong. Let's actually have a door open, and we'll put Bentley inside. We'll have him standing out here calling to Sly. Oh my gosh, I keep calling him Sly. And Carmelita Fox back here, firing a big laser gun at Sly. She's also got a lot of hair, and we'll detail that in a moment. She's gonna wave her hand in the air out of anger because she can't hit him. Seems like she has some anger management problems. We'll work on that in a moment. Let's add in a few more background elements here. Now, in the foregroundish area here, I'm going to add in some chaotic elements from that first level. Sly was actually having to jump over and dodge the blast from Carmelita, while also smoothly flipping over some police cars and stuff that apparently Carmelita has no problem destroying. We'll have some explosions going on here, mainly here, which will also help to emphasize the cane a little bit. And even though I'm not necessarily putting like big giant arrows in this direction, everything is sort of leading to that. It just sort of gives a nice flow to the drawing, so your eyes are directed somewhere. And it looks a little bit chaotic right now, but we'll spruce things up a little bit. Carmelita's actually standing on a shop roof by the time you get done with it. And there is a building behind her. We're going to come in close to our secondary characters back here, and we're just going to do a little bit of detail work on them to make them sort of finished. I'm going to be using a 0.5 mechanical pencil for this next bit here. Bentley is a little short guy. His head sort of sprouts up from his shell, and it's rounded off at the top, but you don't see that much past his ginormous glasses. His glasses are sort of octagon shape. And back here we've got Murray. I'm just gonna draw a little bit in. He has like one tooth, but you're not gonna be able to see too much of Murray in this drawing. Got it coming back there. He's got a scarf on as well. We'll have it blowing in the wind epically. And I wanted to have his arm on the outside here. And if we can, we're gonna show a little bit of his eye. Yeah, there we go. Carmelita is even more grumpy than Bentley. She's always frowning. She's got a coat that is really, really, really too tight for her. And then the rest of her body comes down. Pants start about here. And she's got a little bit of a coat coming around as well. Put some anger marks up here, just to be funny. She's got one main strand of hair coming down across her face, up here. And then she has two going off to the sides of that. She's got a braid of hair coming around behind her. Just ends off like this. So now we're ready to begin our second part of the drawing, and that is going to be to outline the whole drawing with some sketch pens here. We're going to give it a nice black outline. We're going to get rid of all this messy pencil. It'll clean it up a lot and prepare it for the coloring step. I'm going to start out with a 2, I think. And I'm going to start by outlining Sly first. So whenever you're outlining, you want to be careful to make sure that you go slow enough that you don't mess up, maintain control, and just really take your time with it, because there's no way to undo a bad outline. So I've got Sly all outlined now. I'm not doing anything to the eyes yet, because I'm not quite sure what exactly I want to do there to make it right. But now we're going to continue on to outlining the background elements here. Here where the car hood is sort of going up from the explosion, I'm leaving the outline unfinished in some places to let some of these strands of light from the explosion come through. But I still want to give just enough outline so that you can see that there is apparently something there. So I'm going to give Sly in particular a thicker outline with a 0.5, just to sort of further pop his character off the page. Alright, and now that we've got everything outlined, I'm going to start in with my eraser, and I'm going to erase most all of our sketch lines here. This is where you're going to see the drawing start to really clean up, sort of get that polished look to it. There are a few spots where you might see where you didn't outline all the way. Just go in real quick, fix it up. So now that we've gotten all of our outlining done, it is time to begin the coloring of Sly Cooper. If you've watched any of my drawing tutorials before, you know that for my coloring method I like to start off with a base coat color first, which means I take, say, a blue for his coat, and I just basically color lightly all the way across that color to get sort of just a base coat color down. It makes it so that there's less white in the final color, and it makes shading a lot easier to me. And for now, I think we're just going to focus on coloring Sly first. So basically we're going to put a base coat color down for all of the colors on Sly. For Sly's eyes here, we're actually going to start in with a light orange color. So we're just going to throw that in on the side there, and we're definitely not going to color in where the main highlight actually is. It's just a white spot up in the top left. We're going to take this darker brown. We're just going to sort of color around where our highlight is. And now we're going to throw in the pupil in the center there. It's actually under that bright highlight. Now we're ready to start in with the process that gives the depth to the artwork. We're going to shade the drawing and sort of make the character seem a little bit more three-dimensional, make this flat piece of paper seem like it is a window into a certain space. First, we're going to start off with our darkest shade, and we're going to decide that we want the shadows to be on this side because the light is over here. Basically, where I put the cloth wrinkles and stuff, we need the highlight to be on the ridge of it here. Around the cuff, we're going to put a little bit of a shade, just as if it's popping up over it. And for the hand, you might need to look at your hand again, just to figure out where those shadows and whatnot are. Most of our highlights are actually going to be here, so I'm slightly changing what it looks like to me in real life to match my drawing. We got some darker shadows here. Our darkest shadow is going to be back here. And on each finger we're going to do some individual shading as well. And basically we're going to continue on with the same shading method for the rest of the character. For the hat, we didn't really specify where the shadows would be with outlines or anything like that. So we're going to use our colors to tell how the hat is shaped, like this. Our brightest highlights are going to be on the top there. You got to do the same process for every single color on here in order to make it look right. For this drawing, I've decided to go ahead and make it so that the shading is sort of blended between our different shades. So what I do is I start off with a dark amount of color, like this, and then I sort of take that same color that I was working with, just sort of go along the edges there, and blend it together. And something that I like to do from time to time is if I don't think a certain area of a color is bright enough, I like to add in a highlight with my eraser. Now it's time to come in with our black color, our darkest color of them all. And for the tail here, we don't really want to lose our sharp outlines here. And we want our gray to follow the same line of shading over the black to make it seem like it's more of one solid object. And then to finish up the coloring on Sly, I'm going to come in with our base coat colors once more, and I'm going to smooth out those colors that don't really look that finished, like the yellows here. And for certain parts of the fur, I think I'm going to add just a little bit of black. Give it that much more contrast and definition. And now we're turning the drawing upside down once again. We are going to finish coloring by coloring and doing some shading on the background, probably not to the extent that we did for Sly, but we will make it fit together. We're going to add in some highlights and shading from the background onto Sly as well, to sort of make him seem like he's part of the environment. In the game, the walls are sort of a strange pinkish purple color. I'm going to start in with the color that seems to match it the best. We're going to work on our side characters here for a moment, with Bentley and Murray. Laying down base coats for them as well. Obviously we can't get in the amount of shading and detail that we did for Sly, but we're going to include some. And the gun she is wielding, trying to shoot Sly out of the air with, is red. I do not see how it brings out the color of her eyes, though. All the buildings in the background here are going to be a darkish purple. Dark purple. It's definitely dark. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the explosion areas and all the fire and smoke. The reason I left those sort of vaguely outlined and not really colored in yet is because I want to sort of blend the other colors in around them, yet still make them seem like they're just this bright light. So first we're going to start off with our main source of lighting for Sly. Most of our other characters. It's this explosion going on the top of this car hood here. Compared to everything else, this is going to be our brightest area here. It's going to draw your attention here first, and then, like how everything just sort of points this way, it's going to lead your eyes across the drawing. And on the edges of the hood, want to make those a bit darker, sort of give it more contrast, and so that you can tell that there's an object there. The extra mile to just add some things in. You don't have to add in all this stuff, but be creative with your drawing, make it original. And just have fun. We're going to use the same methods for most of the rest of this drawing, since that is what I want to be my brightest area. most of the other fire on the drawing is going to be more orange and red. I'll have a little bit of yellow. Here's my finished drawing of Sly Cooper. Or maybe this is. I don't know anymore. Whichever way you look at it. This is my finished drawing of Sly Cooper in medias res, in a mid-air flip, flipping through explosions and fire and stuff. The page started to curl up, as they sometimes do, but I fixed it with paper clips at first, but they're just in the way. It'll flatten out over time. But anyway, I think this drawing turned out good. I hope you guys liked it as well. As you can tell, or if you have noticed, the pages in this new sketchbook are bigger than my previous sketchbook, so it actually took a little bit longer to finish this, but I also just, in general, did a lot to it, so I think this turned out pretty good once again. If you like this drawing, you should subscribe, because I will be making more drawings in the future. I need requests as well for future drawings, because I'm going to start trying to make more drawings in the next few months ahead. I can't promise anything, but I do have some requests to get finished first, so those will be coming up. I hope you guys like the new angles I put in and the new instructions that I was able to offer. I hope they were helpful. And overall, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, keep on drawing. I'm gonna go sleep now. I've been staying up for the past 2 days drawing. Not really, but I am tired, so. Good night.